Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Anava and I make faith related and medical related videos. Today's video is going to be a medical one and I'm going to be talking about the Usmle process. I did mention this in a previous video and someone did comment that they wanted me to go deeper or explain the process further, and that is what I'm going to be doing in this video. If that is something that you're interested in, then please do stick around. Without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the video. So this is going to be a long chatty video. Sit down, get comfortable, grab a pen and paper to take some notes, grab some juice, some coffee, and just be comfortable because this is going to be really long. I do have my iPad here that I'm going to be reading from because I have all the notes here of everything that happened, and I'm going to try and super summarize it to just give the basic important points. Of course, I highly do recommend that you do your own research. I'm going to leave the 2022 bulletin for Usmle and the 2022 bulletin for ECFMG link in the description bar below, and I highly recommend that you go and you read on that so that at least you are more familiar with the process and you read directly from the source rather than a third party. I'm going to be speaking based on my own experience. I did write my Usmle in 2019. I wrote Usmle step 1 and Usmle step 2 CK. It's quite a long process, I won't lie. I think many people opt to not go the Usmle route because the process is a little bit more demanding, and on top of that it is quite pricey. I know that's the main reason that many people don't opt to go that route, but I do hope this video is going to shed a little bit of light and make the process a little bit more easier for whoever may be led to go down that path. Usmle step 3 is not a requirement for you to write before you go to residency. You write it usually after you start your residency. It is optional that you can write it before you start your residency as a foreign trained or a foreign medical graduate, but in that regard you have to already be certified by the ECFMG, which I am going to get into. I promise I'm going to explain what all this means, but I just want to bring out the point that Usmle step 3 is not going to be included in this video, and if you want information for that, you can go and research online. I'm going to be focusing on step 1 and step 2 CK. Okay, so what is the process for writing your Usmle exam? The first thing is that you have to start with registering with ECFMG. ECFMG is basically like HPCZ in America, specifically for foreign medical graduates. It stands for Educational Commission of Foreign Medical Graduates. It's the representative, or it's the middleman between you as a foreign medical graduate and the residency program in the United States of America. For you to get into that, you have to pass through them. They have to authorize you, they have to certify you, they basically have to give you as a recommendation into America for you to get into America. So yeah, it is, like I said, basically the HPCZ is one which handles everything, but specifically for foreign medical graduates. People who graduate locally in the United States of America have their own representative company that deals with them. The first thing you have to check is if your medical school where you graduated or where you're actively practicing meets the requirement and is eligible for authorization by the ECFMG. The best way to do that, I did mention in a previous video, is to check the World Directory of medical schools. I'm going to leave the website as well in the description bar below. Just search for your school, and then on your school just search for the notes and check if it is authorized by ECFMG. Unfortunately, if it is not recognized and it is not eligible, then you won't be able to use ECFMG. I don't know if you can appeal to that, I'm really not sure, but if the medical school is eligible, then you can move on to the next step, which is obtaining an ECFMG number. This number is kind of like an identification number. Like for them to identify you, they don't use your name, they'll use your number. So that is in regard to ECFMG and all Usmle things. You're going to obtain that identification number. Once you have that identification number, then you can apply for CIF. So CIF is basically just a certification identity form, and that is something that you just use to write to ECFMG to show that you are who you say you are. You send them all your documents, your passport, your ID, your driver's license, whatever it is that you may be using. You just send them all the documents just to certify that you are who you say you are and that you are actually a medical graduate from the medical school that you said. So in that regard, ECFMG is going to actually contact your medical school because they have a partnership, and then verify that you are who you say you are and that you have graduated from that medical school. The whole process didn't take that long, honestly. The registration for my identification number was really fast. It was instant, and then the authorization from my medical school took less than 2 weeks if I'm not mistaken. I did have to call someone from my medical school to respond to them because they told me that my medical school was not responding. So I did have to actually contact my medical school, but I don't think the process takes long if your medical school is quick to respond. Once you have all that, you have been verified by ECFMG, your medical school has been verified and notarized, your documents have been authorized, your identity is verified. Once all that is done, then you can apply for USMLE. So applying for USMLE, you cannot apply directly to the exam. If you're a foreign medical graduate, like I said, you have to use ECFMG. So ECFMG, once you have your identification number, they're going to give you like a password and everything to log in into their portal. And once you have an account there, you will use that account to register for USMLE. So yeah, when you're registering for USMLE, of course, you're going to agree to the terms and conditions and answer a few questions, but then you're going to get a scheduling permit. A scheduling permit is basically a 3-month period in which you want to take your exam. They're going to give you different options and you're going to choose when you want to take your exam. For example, for me, my scheduling permit that I chose was 1st of July to 30th September 2019. And those were the months in which I was planning to write my exam. I registered for my exam back in April, if I'm not mistaken, and I gave myself that amount of time to study, and that is when I chose to write my exam. So you choose your time period that you want and you receive your scheduling permit. It's really important to keep the email or print out your scheduling permit because that is going to be something that is going to be required on test day. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, but it's just really important to keep that scheduling permit. Once you have a scheduling permit, you're able to now choose a day when you want to do your exam. So you're able to choose a day of your exam 6 months in advance. So for example, if I am registering right now in August, then that means I can choose days all the way up until February. When choosing your exam date, you also choose your exam location of where you're going to write the exam. The exams are written at Prometric centers. For me, I went to America and actually wrote it in San Antonio, Texas, but Prometric centers are available globally. They're available all around the world. So you just have to choose where you want to do it. The whole process for being certified by ECFMG, I believe I spent about $160 for everything. That was all my documents, my translation, my verification. It was like $160 that I spent. Okay, so before I get into step 1, I just want to talk about things that you should note prior to the exam. So prior to the exam, I would highly advise that you designate 3 months of study. That means 3 months of full study, no work and no school. So if you're in medical school right now, then that means during your summer vacation or some holiday that you may have, just designate months of study. Unless the situation is beyond your control, for example, you're working and you can't stop working, then you can do study and work. In that regard, I think I'd recommend more than 3 months, but I highly recommend that you study for 3 months plus, because the amount of knowledge that you have to take in, you really need that time. Even our locally graduated people in America, I know that they designate between, I think it should be 2nd year and 3rd year to write the USMLE step 1, and they always designate a certain amount of time. The next thing is that your study resources. For me, when I was writing my exam, I used 2 specific study resources. I didn't choose anything else. I didn't choose my notes from medical school. I didn't choose my notes from the hospital. I didn't choose my notes from practicals. I only used 2 resources, and that is the First Aid medical textbook. I'm going to try and insert a picture here. It's very popular. And UWorld question bank. So these are the only 2 resources that I use, and I highly recommend that you do not use anything else. Another thing is, coming from another region, I had to accustom myself to medicine on that side and things that are common on that side. I, for example, studied in China and then I'm practicing in Zambia, and that contrast already showed me that the human body is the same, anatomy is the same, medicine is the same, but again, medicine is different depending on where you are. What is popular here, the diseases that you deal with here in Zambia are not necessarily going to be the same ones that are going to be popular in America. For example, our malarias, our choleras, our TBs, our HIVs are not going to be as popular as they are here in America. I remember my whole exam, I think I didn't have any question on TB, I didn't have any question on HIV, I had 1 question on malaria, I didn't have any question on cholera. And those are things that are very popular within our community that you'd expect in an exam, like TB or something. But then over there, they are not so popular. And things that are popular there are what you will have to grow accustomed to. So that is why I emphasize that you have to use their specific resources. I did use First Aid. I just got the PDF book, of which I put it on my iPad and on my computer, and that is what I was using to study. I memorized the whole book, and I am not joking, guys. Memorize that whole book word for word, know every condition. It is super summarized, but just memorize it as is, and it's going to really, really help you. So I did use the PDF book, but I think you can get a hard copy. I believe that you can order them from Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. And then the other thing that I used is UWorld. UWorld Reward is an online question bank. It has thousands of questions that are just there for you to use. Membership, I believe the last time I was researching, is dependent on the period you'd want to use it. If you want to use it for 1 month, I think it's $299. If you want to use it for 3 months, it's $399. If you want to use it for 6 months, it's $499. And if you want to use it for 1 year, it's $599. That is dependent on the length of time you're giving yourself to study. So for me, I opted for the 3-month one because I did register in April and I was planning to write by July. So what it is that UWorld has got questions, and the way it is that it kind of sets up the questions in a way that mimics the way the exam is going to come. You can choose a system if you want to do like a musculoskeletal, respiratory system, cardiovascular, or you can choose a topic if you want to do anatomy, physiology, or you can just mix it up and have them throw questions at you, which is what I was doing because I really wanted to mimic what the exam would be. The exam wouldn't come like categorized in different things. It would just be a mix of everything. So I just used to mix it up, and then like you can time yourself, give yourself an hour, which is the exact time that they're going to give you in the exam, little hour blocks. You can time yourself and just like have a feel of what the exam is going to be and answer those questions. And honestly, like that really helped me. That is what helped me, number one. That is what helped me the most. That and first aid, like it really, really helped me. Next thing is I did have like mock exams. They have this mock exams that they do, but the website, just search NBME. They have like the mock exams that they do from there, and those cost about $60. And I did 2 of those before I wrote my actual exam. I did 2 mock exams. The first mock exam I failed, the second mock exam I did better, and then my actual exam I did pass. So yeah, I just did those to kind of like familiarize myself to know like what the exam is going to be. Those are also good sources for practice, but for studying, I highly recommend the 2 that I previously mentioned. Alright, okay, so like I said, it's going to be a long video. Now let's dig deep and start talking about the step exams. So the step 1 and step 2 exams can be written in any order. You can write one first and then the other one second. You don't necessarily have to write them in the numerical order, but they both have to be written before you write step 3. You can write the exam at any point after the completion of your basic sciences in medical school. The validity period, once you write your exam and you pass, your pass mark is valid for 7 years, meaning that you have 7 years to pass your other exam. You have 7 years to be certified by ECFMG, and you have 7 years to register for residency in America. After 7 years, whatever exam you have written, whatever pass mark you have, it is invalid to be used in the United States of America. The other thing is that you have 4 attempts on each exam. You can only attempt 4 times, and after the 4th time, if you fail, you are not allowed to write the exam again. However, if you do pass the exam, whatever your pass mark is, that is the pass mark that you're going to be dealing with. You're not allowed to rewrite the exam once you pass it, unless it expires and becomes invalid after the 7 years. Then you can rewrite the exam. As I mentioned, these exams are written at prometric centers, which are like computer centers for testing, and they are found everywhere in the world. They are worldwide. The closest one that we have to Zambia is in South Africa, Johannesburg. So in South Africa, Cape Town. So you can travel there to write it. That is the closest one. But they are found everywhere in the world. If you're currently in China or Russia, wherever it is that you're studying, there's probably a prometric center somewhere near you. The step 1 exam is an exam that is based on basic sciences. The cost of the exam is $985, and it consists of 280 MCQs divided in 7 1-hour blocks. So the full exam is actually 8 hours. Now I'm going to have to explain this a little bit further. So the exam consists of 280 questions. Those 280 questions are divided into 40 questions each, and each of those 40 questions is for 1 hour. So you get 7 1-hour blocks to answer those questions, and then you also get a 45-minute break. So how you choose to divide that time is up to you. Just know that every time you clock an hour or you finish answering that set of questions, it closes. It's like a chapter, it closes, and then you move on to the next chapter and answer the next batch of questions. So it's not one full 7-hour exam, but it's actually 7 little 1-hour exams, if that makes sense. But they have to be finished in that time frame that you have been given. When you arrive for your exam, you have to arrive 30 minutes earlier than the time that you have been given. When you arrive, you have to bring your passport or your identity document, as well as your scheduling permit, which I mentioned a little bit earlier. This is required for you to enter the exam. If you do not bring it, you won't be allowed to enter the exam. exam. You are given a locker right outside the exam where you put everything. You put your phone, you put your papers, you put your food, you put your notes, you put your pen. You're not allowed to go with anything into the exam except earplugs for noise if you're sensitive to noise. But besides that, everything else has to go into the locker. So you're given the key, you put your stuff in the locker, and then you sign in. Once you sign in, you are searched, you are scanned with that little scanning machine. If you wear glasses like me, your glasses are going to be checked to make sure that there is nothing on the frame on the inside. They're going to check your fingerprints to confirm your identity and everything, and then you're allowed inside. Once you enter inside, someone's actually going to escort you to your designated seat. Check the audio, the sound, the headphones, you make sure that they're working, because there are some questions that will have sounds. Like for example, in the clinical exam, you hear like a heart murmur and you have to make a diagnosis or something. So you have to make sure that your audio is actually working very fine. Once you verify that, you can log in using your identity number. They're going to give you a board or a piece of paper and a pen. If you need to make some notes or you need to make some calculations, that is the only thing that you're going to have on your table, besides your headphones and then the computer. So once you log in and the time starts, you start your first session of the exam. So like I said, there are 7 different sessions and you decide how you want to divide them. For example, for me, the way I divided them, I did the first session and the second session back to back. And then afterwards, I took a break for like 10 minutes. And then I went back and I did the third session and the fourth session back to back. And then I took a lunch break for 20 minutes. And then I went back, I did the 5th session. I took a 5-minute break. I did the 6th session, I took a break, and then I did the 7th session. Each session is 1 hour. And the timer is right on the computer. If you finish that session earlier than that 1 hour, whatever time is left is going to be added to your break time. However, if you clock 1 hour and you're not done with your questions, that session closes and shuts down and they submit whatever questions you have answered so far. You cannot go above 1 hour for that one session of 40 questions. So whatever you have answered so far is what is submitted, and then you have the option to either take a break or to move on to your next session. If you have, it should be I think 10 seconds of inactivity on the screen. It's going to notify you that you are not active on the screen. So either you have to start being active or it's going to go to unauthorized break. If you go above your minutes per break, for example, you have 45 minutes per break and the last session maybe you had like 10 minutes left for break and you decide to take 20 minutes, then that extra 10 minutes is going to be taken from your exam session, meaning that one of your exam sessions is not going to be 1 hour, it's going to be 50 minutes. So they are very strict on time like that. So yeah, you really have to kind of have your time on point. The breaks can be taken there within the computer room. You can just sit and stretch and just like breathe, woosa, and then continue with the exam. Or you can actually leave the whole, like for me, the first 2 times I left, when I had my lunch, I left, and then the last one I just sat there. But you can actually leave, but then just put into factor that once you leave and you go to your locker or you go outside to the car or whatever, when you come back in, you have to be searched again, you have to be scanned, your fingerprints, all that has to be done, and that also takes time, which is counted as part of your break. Usually the results are going to come out about 3 to 4 weeks after the exam. ECFMG is going to send you an email to notify that the results are out, and then you have to log into their portal to actually check your results. So like I said, the step 1 is actually 280 questions, 7-hour exam, 45 minutes break, and it is based on basic sciences. That is your anatomy, your physiology, your biochemistry, cellular biology, your histology, and all those subjects. That is what your step 1 is going to be based on. Step 2 is a clinical exam, and it's going to be based on your clinical subjects. So your internal medicine, your genetics, your surgery, your obs and gynae, those are the type of questions that you're going to be receiving in step 2. Step 2 has got 318 MCQs. That is more than step 1, and this exam is actually 9 hours long. So once you write your step exams and you get your exams that you've passed, you can now move on to get qualified by ECFMG. So for you to be qualified by ECFMG, you have to have those 2 exams as passes, and then you have to write an English exam. Occupational English exam, that is an exam that is from Australia. This exam costs about $400, and when you write this exam, you can either write it from a center, of which we do not have one in Zambia. The closest one that we have is in Zimbabwe, in Harare, or you can choose to opt to do it online at home. But then they are very specific about writing at home. You have to follow certain rules and you have to use a certain type of computer. You're not allowed to use a phone, you're not allowed to use an iPad. So once you write that exam along with your step results, you can submit that to ECFMG and then apply for a pathway. So there are 6 different types of pathways. I'm not going to get into that into this video, but then just know that if you don't qualify for pathway number 1, you move on to pathway number 2. If you don't qualify for that one, you move on to pathway number 3. You just literally go all the way until 6. By 6, everyone should qualify in one way or another. For example, the first pathway is that you have to have a valid license in your country. Where you're coming from, you have to have practiced for a certain amount of years. Like They are just different requirements, and if you don't meet that one, then you move on to the next one. So applying for a pathway is $925, and once you apply for a pathway and you are authorized, then you take that, your English exam, your step 1 and step 2 scoring, and then you submit that to ECFMG and request for verification. Once you are verified by ECFMG, now you're in the clear to actually apply for residency and apply for a job in America, and then that is it. That's like the end of ECFMG verification. So once you're verified, now you apply to ERAS. ERAS is like the online residency kind of application system, and then from there you apply to like the NRMP, that is like the match program. I'm sure you've heard of like match day, when people get to know which residency they're going into and where they're going to practice. All those applications are going to be, all those applications you'll be able to get with them once you're certified by ECFMG. So I'm not going to get into that into this video. One, because it's going to make the video really, really long, and two, because I haven't yet gotten to that point. I wouldn't want to speak from something that I haven't experienced. But yeah, the summary of that is that you do that whole application and that whole process. I can round it off to about $1,000 for ERAS and the match program, like application to programs and everything, depending on how many programs you're going to apply to or how many jobs you're going to apply to. But it's also quite a cost on its own. That is a whole other video that I'm going to make once I cross that bridge. I just wanted to really cover USMLE in this video and kind of give you guys a summary of how to get to write your USMLE exam and what exactly you would expect when you're writing your USMLE exam. Of course, legally, I'm not allowed to talk about the type of questions or what comes in the exam and other details. I can't talk about it legally because I'm not allowed to. You actually sign. But yeah, it's not a bad exam. It's, if you study and you devote yourself, honestly, it's not a bad exam. The only thing that I'm going to add on is just keep in line the timeline. So the timeline of how all this works, ECFMG is limitless. Like I said, you have 7 years to do that. But then whenever you're certified by ECFMG and you're moving on to ERAS and the match program, ERAS opens in June. And once it opens and you enter, you have to have your recommendation letters, you have to have your documents, you have to have everything for medical school submitted on that platform, and then apply for the match program, which opens around September. Once you apply for the match program, matches are done in February, March period, and then you are hired and you start work in June the following year. So that is like the time frame, and you kind of like have to keep in mind the deadlines and everything. And like I said, once I get there, I will share the process of what I have done. But this video was just a summary for USMLE, and I hope it has helped you in one way or another. I know it is very, 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 very complicated when you are just starting, but once you get into it, you really do feel, you really do get accustomed and you get used to everything that is happening. Just watch a lot of YouTube videos, just read a lot of bulletins, just go to their website, do research, ask people. You can send me an email. My email is in the description bar below. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. You can email ECFMG directly. They have a very good response rate. If you're able to call, you can call their numbers on their website. It's easy once you get the hang of it. Starting, I won't lie, is quite a difficult thing, and the other difficult thing is the expense. But if you have the finances, or you're saving for it, or you just do it little by little, it is very, very doable. That is a summary of the video, you guys. I hope this video has helped you in one way or another. If you're opting to apply for USMLE or your goal is to practice in America, please do comment down below and let me know, because I would like to know anyone who has that goal. When I started off, I feel like the goal was very unattainable, and many people tried to talk me out of it. I didn't have a lot of support when I started out, but I think I carried on well and even now I feel like it's a very strenuous process, and you kind of have to do it on your own and survive on your own. But God has been good, and if He does allow me to see it through and I do end up getting into residency there, that's going to be such an awesome thing. If not, I'm very content with staying where I am. But I just want to know anyone else who has like the same vision as me. Like, it's just nice to have like-minded people, and I'd like to hear what your goals are and what gave you the dream of wanting to pursue such a thing. Alright guys, so that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. Like I said, I hope it has helped you in one way or another. And yeah, if you'd like more medical videos, please do subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.